Today I'm going to go over the basics of forging a brass bracelet, and today for that brass bracelet I'm going to use a piece of 10 gauge brass wire, round wire. It is dead soft, as the copper is that I used the other day. And it comes in a pound bundle like this, again from Rio Grande, which I use almost exclusively. The end of it here is very bent. I'm going to cut that off and discard that. And I'm going to cut about a 5.5 inch piece of wire off of the very end. And as usual, I use a piece of sponge sandpaper to clean it. And give that a quick cleaning like this. I'm going to use a bench pin and a file to round the ends over. And I can do that right here very quickly. I'm rounding the ends because I'm going to strike it with a steel hammer, and what I do, I want the ends to flatten out like a spoon shape, and if they have a snipped edge, when I flatten them out, they'll end up being very sharp. Now that I have that clean and the ends rounded, I have a horn, but you can use a lot of different things. You can go to an old tool store, a used tool store, and buy any kind of round piece of steel. It works great. I have this tapered horn, which works really well, and I have several hammers and a mallet laid out here. This is my favorite hammer. It's a ball peen planishing hammer. I also have here an old ball peen hammer that I've polished up that works great. Another old hammer that's, I'm not sure what it was designed for. You get this at $3 at a yard sale probably, but finish it off very nice. These work great. And another hammer that I've taken a file to and textured the end of it. So when I strike that, it gives kind of a mesh look to it, kind of a screen appearance, and a rawhide mallet. And the first thing I'm going to do is shape this with the rawhide mallet. And I'm going to move the camera in a little closer so you can see exactly what's going on. Right here in the horn, basically what I'm doing is putting a little bend in the middle of it to give me a starting point. And essentially, when I'm shaping the bracelet, I'm putting a series of bends in it with the rawhide mallet. I'm tapping this with the rawhide mallet with a little bit of air underneath the wire, the brass wire, so that it drops down. And basically all I'm doing is a series of bends that are close enough together and smooth enough so that it gives a nice graceful curve. I'm keeping the wire perfectly vertical, and I'm keeping it square to my work surface. If I alter in either one of those, my bracelet will come out twisted. So it looks something like this. And I'll flip it over and do the other side. Now I'll get a shape something like this, hopefully. And if it's twisted, I can use my hands to move it around a little bit, no problem. Then it's up to the artist to be as creative as possible, or as much as they want to be. You can create patterns with hammers. I like the planishing end of this hammer to start. I'm going to strike the very ends of them and flatten those out. And again, I have the bracelet vertical. My hammer is striking my work surface at a perpendicular angle, and my handle is horizontal. If I start leaning the hammer too much, one way or another, my bracelet will twist out. And also I'll strike this horn, which you can see it's quite riddled with students missing, but that does tend to happen. So all I've done is flatten the ends. And then I can start taking different hammers. I'll take this textured one that I took a file to. That's going to make kind of a textured surface on the front of it. And I'll try a couple different hammers. I'll use this little wedge right here. Roll my bracelet around so I can work the edges of it a little bit. And then I'm going to roll my hammer over. Go back to my favorite hammer, which is this large planishing hammer, and strike this on the side. I can set it right up on the side. Now it's twisted a bit. I can adjust that with my hands, and I can also put it back on the horn use that surface to get it a little bit smoother. A big problem with bracelet making is the ends tend to flare up, and you want to bring those down. If the end was flared up, like this, you'll want to just get a little air underneath it, right up below the wire, above the horn, right between the two. Hold the bracelet firmly and just tap that down, and that will bring it down. If they're flared up, the bracelet will tend to fall off. And I can work on getting this as perfect as I want, and sometimes that can take quite a while. But for now, for the sake of a demonstration, I'll get it fairly close. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit here, and then I'll polish it. When I'm polishing, there's a few things you want to be careful about. First of all, make sure you're wearing safety glasses whenever you're doing any polishing. And when you're using the buffing wheel, I like to tell students, remind students, to polish right there in front of the wheel. This wheel is spinning forward, and I want to hold my bracelet or any object that I'm polishing right there in front. And I do not want to be hooking my finger into any objects. If my buffing machine grabs the bracelet, I want to let the buffing machine take the bracelet. Always let this win. It can have all the jewelry it wants. Unless you have 11 fingers, make sure you don't hook your fingers into it. I always pinch everything like this. I stand with my elbows in, my hands connected, and I just lean into it and apply pressure as this is spinning right there in front of it. If you hook in too low, it tends to grab it, and if you are applying pressure on the top of the buffing wheel, it will tend to flick it down. So this is a durable venting system. It has a light and a vent system. Well, it's a filter system really, and this is powered directly into it. I'll get the camera a little bit zoomed in so you can see exactly how that works. First, I'll apply a little buffing compound to the wheel. Then I'm going to let this buffing wheel lap the edge. I don't want to buff into the end because it'll tend to grab it. When I get all the way around, I'll turn the bracelet around like this so I'm buffing the end of it. And I also don't try to buff the edges too much. That's a surefire way to lose the bracelet into the buffing wheel. And there, with a little soap and water, I'll have a finished bracelet. You can also get a pretty nice finish with sanding cloth, but I like to use the buffing wheel, and if you can afford one of these machines, they're definitely worth it.